Every day I walk into a situation, I am constantly learning and evolving. And if you can take those opportunities and continue to learn, the sky's the limit.
Welcome to Flip Your Script, the podcast about life's critical turning points and how people find the inspiration and motivation to move forward and rewrite their unique stories. Produced by Media Minefield, the show is hosted by Christy Peel, who flipped her script from an Emmy-winning journalist to a successful entrepreneur and speaker.
If you're a fan of professional baseball, you know the name Koskie. He played on several different teams and spent the bulk of his career as the third baseman for the Minnesota Twins. He was inducted into the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. Corey was forced to retire after a diagnosis of post-concussion syndrome. He's a husband and father to 4 boys, an entrepreneur, and an advocate for youth sports. Corey, thanks for joining me.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
So you flipped your script a lot of ways. Leaving professional baseball wasn't exactly your choice. Tell me about the time in your life when you went from baseball player to not thinking you could do that professionally anymore. And that wasn't like an overnight thing. That was a period of time.
Yeah, so basically after I was dealing with my concussion for 2.5 years, and then kind of in that time trying to figure out what I'm going to do next, I knew I couldn't do nothing because it was one of those things where I was going crazy. I can only play so much golf. And so I kind of fooled around with a couple of things. And in my concussed state, I put a couple offers in on some commercial real estate buildings. And, luckily they weren't accepted. And I guess I'm lucky I'm Manitoba cheap. And so my offers weren't full value. I actually looked at doing it, so these mini hockey rinks, and kind of through that whole process, I realized that I was out of my lane. I was playing on the highway and looking for something else to do, and I knew I had to do something.
So professional athletes know that they aren't going to be doing that job when they're 65. But you don't know when you're going to get hurt and can't do it anymore. So you were young and not expecting to retire. Was it hard just to wrap your mind around the fact that you had to think about doing something else?
Professional athletes are highly driven, highly successful people. And now that I've been outside of the professional athlete world, I start to see a lot of similarities between highly successful business people and highly successful professional athletes. A professional athlete is good at what they do in whatever vertical they're in. But they also, to fill their time, they're also looking to do other stuff in other places. So when I was playing professional sports, I dipped my toe into buying a piece of commercial property. And so I always was active, always looking for always looking for a potential investment, because the reality of it is, because I was really good at what I did in this one area, I thought I could be really good in other areas. And I lost a lot of money in my investments while I was playing. And the reality of it is, you have a lot of money, you have a lot of disposable income, you have a lot of people coming at you, and you want to help them kind of get to their goal. You think that it's kind of work because everything in professional sports has a lot to do with, it's a lot on you. And so you can just work your way through it. And you don't realize how hard it is to actually be really successful in running a business and growing something that's special, because your world it's you. And if you hit more, you get paid more. And if you hit more people want you. And if you hit more, you have a better chance to win. Well, that's not how it works in the real world. And so that was kind of the big transition for me as I kind of went from professional sports into being a businessman. And the reason I got into business after my professional career was, as you alluded to earlier, I had a concussion and I was dealing with it for 2.5 years. So I knew I may or may not be able to come back and play. And the longer I went out, the more I realized that I'm probably not going to come back and play. So what am I going to do next? And I was sitting in my office on the computer, and I heard Joshua, who's my second oldest, talking to one of his buddies. And his buddy goes, "What does your dad do? Because he's home a lot." And I heard Joshua say, I don't know. All he does is sit on his computer and plays golf.
Ouch.
That was one of the things where I realized that I learned everything that I learned from my dad. And the world that they're seeing me, because I didn't need to work outside of, I saved enough money through my playing career that I didn't need to do anything. But what kind of example is that setting for my kids? And so I went out and started to search for opportunities out there. And I put some offers into a couple commercial properties because I thought I'm going to do these mini rinks. And I'm lucky that, I call those my concussion kind of attempts. And I was happy that those didn't go through. And then one of my friends who was on the board of Planet Fitness told me, you should check out these Planet Fitnesses. And so that led down the path of exploring a potential running a business.
There's a couple things you said there that I want to back up because I think it's really interesting and would be helpful for folks. So you talked about, your kids watching you. And we all, as parents, whatever we're doing, they're watching us, whether that's, hey, don't have your phone at the dinner table. Yeah, don't forget that I have mine. It's all these things. And thank goodness Joshua said something so you were aware of that. And you're really passionate about helping kids and youth sports and those types of things, which I want to get into. But that one comment that he gave you really changed how you're spending this part of your life. Does he know that comment was such an impact for you?
Maybe, maybe not, because I've talked about it before and it's been in a couple articles. And then I look back at when I got into business, I look back and I think the reason I had success and support through it, because I didn't do it to fulfill really my needs, because I didn't need to do anything. And the easy thing for me to do was just go out and play golf. I did it to try to show my kids, hey, you know what? This is how you work. This is how you do this. And through that, from a selfish standpoint, I learned a lot, and it helped me become a better father, better husband, better dad, better leader, because I've had to struggle through a lot of this stuff as I'm running my business.
And what's interesting about your story, there's a lot of it that's interesting. You didn't know anything really about business. Just because you have money to spend on business doesn't mean that like me, I was a TV reporter. I didn't know anything about business. You can learn. And I think you and I, we learned in similar ways. We just read a lot and talked to a lot of people and made some mistakes. But I think that there's this mindset that to be good at something, you have to have these degrees and you have to have all of this, education. And business, you did the school of hard knocks in business.
The funny thing is, I thought I knew how to do it. I thought, how hard, going into it, I'm like, how hard can this be? I see all these business guys, they have two phones. They got one phone for personal, one for the business. How hard? I can do that. But once you get into it and you start to deal with people, it gets really messy really quick. And the thing with business is that you are dependent on other people to do their job, whether it's a vendor or whether it's your employees, to help you grow the business. That was probably the most difficult part about my transition, was learning how to trust other people kind of doing their job, because I just want to go in and fix it and get them to do it right at a high level, like I did everything. But learning how to coach people through that and being okay with other people's flaws and when they're not successful, and helping build people up. But the thing with it, the most money I've lost in investments is pretty much the people with the most degrees on the wall. There's so many places where I've been into where there's been people with MBAs and really smart people. And I'm listening to these guys present and I'm like, these guys have no idea what they're talking about. And it's disappointing, because when I went to the business world, I had this vision of what this would look like. But the thing that I try to teach my kids is it doesn't matter what kind of degree you have on the wall, you're always learning. Because my kids are smarter than me and they will have a lot more opportunities. And if you can take those opportunities and continue to learn with kind of their ability, the sky's the limit. That's where I see with a lot of people in academia, whether it's a degree on the wall or a title on their door, they stop learning.
And you can learn outside of classroom. Again, we're not dissing on education here. Education's fantastic. And you have to continue to keep learning. And that's books and that's conversations. And that's, with the internet, we have so many options to keep learning. It's funny, Corey, you said that the team aspect of business is what surprised you. And yet as an athlete and depending on your team, I would think that would be the part that would be the most natural for you.
Well, you got to remember what sport I came from. Baseball. It's a very individual. So if you have success in your individual world, you don't really need a team to really, especially, offensively, if you're hitting, it's me against the pitcher. So there's all these individual matchups within the game of baseball. If I'm building a business, the guys I'm hiring are hockey guys. The hockey guys know that concept and they have to be dependent on each other. And hockey guys, man, they'll go through the wall for the other guy. Football, the same way. Football, you have to be dependent on your teammates and your line mates, because if the guy over to your right doesn't do his job, you can get hurt. There's more of a cohesive kind of flow to stuff, where baseball is a lot more individual, and it's the sum of individual successes lead to a win.
And because I know you, I want to clarify something for people listening. Corey's talking a lot about male-dominated sports and men. He's got 4 sons. He has nothing against women. He is not a misogynist. He's using these words because that's his world and that's his normal. I just want to clear that up so that nobody writes in and says that you don't like women, because I know that's not true. And Shannon would say that's not true as well. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that wasn't misunderstood. So we've talked about this, and I think it's fascinating, is that some people, when they go into a business opportunity and they have the finances, the other people sitting across the table just want the money, because people have been coming after you wanting with their hand open for so many years. How do you decide if someone is wanting you for your brain or wanting you just because you can write a check? And is that that must be a struggle?
Well, I don't know if it's a universal truth, but it's a universal truth in my arena. People lump you into the category in which they basically first met you. So if the first time I met you, I was a janitor, it doesn't matter what I do for the rest of my life, I'm always a janitor in your eyes. And that's a tough thing that I feel that I have to overcome, because there's a certain aura around a professional athlete. They're dumb, they're this, they're that, whatever, you're an athlete. So I just feel like I have to overcome that. And basically that's been the story of my life. I played Major League Baseball and I was born and raised in Enola, Manitoba, and I didn't really start playing baseball till I was 19 years old. My favorite sport was hockey and my best sport was volleyball. And so I had to figure that out. I was very raw. And so I had to figure out how to compete and play baseball. And I didn't get the benefit of the doubt. When I first got to the big leagues, my defense was too bad. I couldn't play, so I DH'd once every 4 days. So I had to figure out how to overcome that and say, you know what? Okay, they don't think my defense is good. Let's go work on that. And now I retire, and then I roll into my professional career, into business, and with Planet Fitness. Obviously, I would have liked to. My first thing out of sports, I would have liked to be in the front office for a professional baseball team, kind of getting that role of special counsel to the GM, special assistant. These guys are making $100,000 to $200,000, and they work 2 to 6 hours a month. So I'd hope that I would be able to bring some talents into that one. Well, I didn't get that opportunity, and I didn't really get anything in baseball. So, okay, now what? What's the next thing? And so, well, let's go try to make my name known outside of baseball. So now I do the Planet Fitnesses. And when I first opened the Planet Fitnesses, I got my teeth kicked in. And it sucked. And it was really hard, because every Planet Fitness that opened up in the country would be cash flow break even within 2 months. And these things were, in theory, a license for printing money. And I am getting my teeth kicked in, and I'm signing up 20 people when the rest of the country are signing up 200 people. And so now I'm getting the heat from corporate, and they come in and they try to, help me with my with my operations. And I remember the one time they came in, and I worked hard on my operations. My clubs were spotless. My staff was friendly, and I thought I was doing well with my operations. And they would come in and they would sit in my stores and look at it. And after a week of evaluating my stores, they would say, Corey, the reason your stores are not doing well is because you don't have your rate sheets on purple paper. And I was like, are you kidding me? So you're telling me the reason Brooklyn signed up 280 people yesterday and I signed up 12 is because my rate sheets aren't on purple paper. And then they're saying, well, you're not doing the marketing plan and you're not doing this. So they would come all the stuff in which I was doing. And so I got to the point in the first couple of years of my Planet Fitness ownership and saying, you know what? I've tried to do everything your guys' way. I need to do it my way and try to figure the sucker out, because if I'm going to lose the business, I'm going to lose it on my terms, and now I'm not going to lose them on your terms. So I tweaked my marketing. I focused on culture. I didn't focus on my bottom line info, my numbers, and I completely turned the stores around. And then 4.5 years later, I was able to have a significant exit on the 2 stores that I had. But kind of after I did that, now what do I do next? And so that's kind of been a little bit hurdle. And I don't know if that's my own insecurities in that. The thing that I've had to constantly evolve through the whole crazy thing called life.
You've evolved business, you've evolved athlete, and you have such a passion for youth sports. You should be coaching someone somewhere right now. And, we're in the middle of a global pandemic and you're not able to do that. So why the passion for youth sports? Why the passion to spend your time that way when there are so many things you could give your time and energy to?
Because really that's the easiest one for me. So after I sold my Planet Fitnesses, I'm trying to figure out what to do next. And so I went in and consulted with a business, and I had these great ideas of how I'm going to help them, how I'm going to do that. And the founder of the company was all in until the check was cashed. And then I didn't feel like my suggestions were as taken as well as they once were when they were kind of trying to get me to invest in the company. But through that, I wanted to provide some value to this group. And so I went out and got my traction certification. So I became EOS certified, not officially, but I went through all the classes, and I'm able to implement that into a company. And then I also went and got my master's in business dynamics through a concept called scaling up. And with those, I figured, I'm like, you know what? I enjoy coaching. I'm going to, I want to coach business owners, because if I can affect the business owners, well, that's going to affect their families. That's going to be, you're able to get more bang for your buck. And I got really frustrated dealing with some entrepreneurs, because, everybody says they want to be held accountable until they're held accountable. And so accountability is a tough thing for a lot of people to deal with. And that is a new concept for me, because my previous career, I was held accountable every day. I was okay with feedback, and I was okay with people telling me how much I sucked. I'm like, okay, I'll just get better. But in the other world now, in the business world, the accountability is, everybody says they want it, but nobody really wants to hear it. And so I went and got all these different certifications, and I thought I would, help people make money and kind of do the thing and have the same success as I had running my Planet Fitnesses. And it didn't go that well, because I just got too frustrated dealing with business owners. So then I took that stuff I learned and started implementing that into some of the coaching and some of the stuff I did with the kids, because kids are really moldable and they're coachable. And they don't have the baggage that a lot of adults have. Like they haven't really developed their insecurities yet, and they're okay with failing. Where adults, they're not okay with failing at all, and it's all about politicking. And I just remember, I'd go to family events and I would enjoy sitting with the kids more, because they didn't care who I was or what I brought to the table or what I could do for them. They're just like, is this guy treating me with respect? And does he respect me? And is he talking to me in a respectful way? That's all they care about. And I think that's why I enjoy talking and coaching the kids, because it doesn't matter where you played or what you did. They want to be treated fairly, and there's no agenda that they have. And so that's kind of why I enjoy coaching the kids and how I kind of fell on there. And then you start to get the parents and that's where all the agenda becomes.
100%. I've seen it. You've seen it. And I want to talk about that. I want to back up. You talked about Gino Wickman's entrepreneurial operating system based on the book Traction, and Vern Harnish is Scaling Up. Just in case anyone's looking for what those books were, that's what you were talking about. And they're awesome. Highly recommend. Okay, coaching. You've coached my son. You probably should be coaching him, right now since you're coaching for high school, but we can't because we can't play. And it was a game you were coaching. And I think the boys at that time were maybe 11 or 12. Maybe they're younger than that. And police just about had to get called because this parent went crazy at the ump. And I mean, this is youth sports. Have you been surprised at what you've seen over the years doing all the coaching at the parents? Or did you expect that?
When I first transitioned from professional sports to the kind of the business world, yes, absolutely. But the longer that you become a leader and the longer you start dealing with adults and in their dynamic, in their kind of realm in the business world, that doesn't surprise me at all, because there's a lot of people who are hurting out there, and there's just a lot of pressure that people are putting on themselves. And a youth sports event is an emotional environment, and basically all our insecurities as a parent can blow up at the youth sports event. And like I told my employees at Planet Fitness, if somebody comes screaming at you over a $10 membership, chances are it's not because of that $10 membership. And so that's the same thing kind of in the youth sports world. If a parent comes screaming because their kid got called on a third strike in the third inning, chances are that has nothing to do with it. And so I just think it's a lot deeper, and it's going to get worse because there's more pressure on us. There's more fear. There's more insecurity, and it's not going to get any better any sooner.
And to circle back to, Joshua walking in and saying, yeah, my dad doesn't do anything. Like, they're watching always, right? And the same thing when you see the parent going completely crazy, the kids are watching. So we're really developing the next generation of this, because so much of what kids learn and do is modeled based on what they see their parents doing. And I know your approach to coaching is to teach the kids something about themselves that they can take off the field, because most people aren't able to learn a sport at 19 and become a professional athlete. What do you want your athletes to take away from your coaching into their life?
Well, I want them to be resilient, and I want them to be tenacious, and I want them to be okay with failure, because we're all going to get knocked down. And that's one of the biggest lies that's kind of being portrayed to us, is successful people are lucky, and people who have a lot of money are lucky. That's the biggest lie that is out there, because I've lived the gamut. I was born and raised in a little below middle class home on a farm in Manitoba. My dad worked at CN as a carman, and he farmed, and he busted his tail, and we just couldn't get ahead, and everything was paycheck to paycheck, and we were living, what a lot of people were living, and that was how I was raised. And through kind of my baseball career, I've been lucky enough to be around a lot of people who've developed successful businesses and started those things from scratch. And these people sacrificed everything. And even with my baseball career, I had to sacrifice, when people were going out, I couldn't go out. I had to stay in. And so there's a lot of sacrifice to that. The one thing that's beautiful about sports is that you can feel yourself get better. So with every rep, you can feel yourself get better, and it's there, it's tangible. And then it gives you the opportunity to get knocked down and get back up. Because like I said, it's not about getting knocked down, it's how quickly you get up after you get knocked down. And the more successful you are, the more you are going to get knocked down. And the more other people are going to want you to get knocked down. And then the higher you go up, the farther you fall. And so it's not about that. It's about always kind of getting up. And that's one of the biggest takeaways that I would want for the kids that I coach is, success is defined on how you define success. And it's about resilience and tenacity to get to whatever you define as success.
Good lessons for kids, good lessons for adults. Can you give us some insight into what you're up to now? Because you are kind of the evolution king. You have gone from one thing to the next thing, and you continue to, find success. And I love that you're very open about when things don't work out, because there is this mindset. And I think one of the reasons that people think successful people get lucky is because a lot of folks aren't willing to talk about the hard days and the failures and the time that deal fell through and the losses. And you're kind of open about that. So what are you up to now?
So right now, I started a company called 2020 Advisor Group. Me and another guy who had a pretty significant exit, and he started a tech company. The only guy in the Midwest that had sold an app and made a lot of money from selling an app, and he actually sold 3 apps. And so that's kind of how I got to know him. So we started this advisor group, and I got my insurance license. And the reason I got my insurance license, and it's health, so I got my health and disability kind of license, is because a company I invested in built a tech platform to take advantage of a law that was passed in June of last year called ICRA, Individual Contribution HRAs. I really liked the concept because it was what I did with my companies before the ACA, where they kind of took away HRAs. So basically the concept is employer, you give employee a lump sum of money, employee goes to the open market, buys an individual plan, and employer just gives them up to X amount of dollars and pays for to pay for an individual plan. It's clean, it's simple.
Wow. When I think about someone who's flipped their script, I mean, baseball player, consultant, business owner, investor, insurance, you've done a lot. And based on just who you are and how you roll, you're not done.
Yeah, the thing that I like about this insurance thing that really, I talk about a wider path, and you kind of have this land and expand. And so the biggest pain points within companies is around your benefit package. And what I'm presenting can save companies 40 to 60% on their premiums. And you have the opportunity to get better health insurance. Well, now I'm able to save a company that much money. Well, now all of a sudden we can come in and offer some other services kind of from a leadership development standpoint to really affect their employees and their leaders and kind of get them thinking outside the box. Because if I'm able to provide a tool for people to be better communicators, articulate what they're feeling, well, now all of a sudden we're affecting marriages and we're affecting their relationship with their kids. And so you're just making a better environment all around for a group of employees. And that's kind of what I liked about my Planet Fitness, is because I could force people to go through some leadership development stuff and really challenge them in some of the lies that they're telling themselves.
It's great because at the end of the day, a lot of the different things you've done have been about helping people and helping them see their potential and helping them think about themselves in different ways. To me, in thinking about it, that's kind of the theme.
Well, listen, at the end of the day, I have a high school degree, played professional sports for 15 years. I brought a health club, a gym, to the most competitive market in the United States. I was able to exit that and do a profitable exit and turn it around, and then buy a solar company and do all this stuff. And I've had success through that. And I'm like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Because, when I started playing professional baseball, I was like, you know what, everybody else is better than me, but the one thing I can do is I can work harder than them. So I will outwork them. And working and effort is individual. And that has nothing to do with IQ, has nothing to do with a lot of the other stuff that you can't control. If I can do this stuff and have success doing this stuff, the sky is the limit for so many people. They just got to realize that they can get outside of their box. I don't know if you heard the story of the gnat. If you put gnats in a kind of a jar, and then you leave the gnats, well, they're all going to be able to jump out of the jar because they can jump like 50 or 60 times higher than their body height. So they all jump out of the jar. Well, if you take these gnats and you have the jar and you put a lid on it, and now you leave that lid on it and you leave them overnight, and they keep jumping and they keep hitting that lid. Well, the next day you come to that jar, you undo the jar, and now the gnats aren't going to jump out of the jar because they are used to hitting their head. They're basically now been trained that they can't jump out of that jar. And that's really what's happened in our world and our society, is that we're being trained that this is your limit. This is as high as you can go. Well, you know what? It's not. There's so much more room for people to go. And the lies that we're being told over and over and over again. And like you said, I go back to, look, if I can do it, I have no doubt in my mind that outside of people who have like a medical reason for not being able to do it, anybody can have success and do well at whatever they want to do.
It's a great place to get to and ask the last question, which we ask at the end of every podcast. What's a quote from a book or song that helped you motivate when you had to, flip your script and evolve? Or a saying, a mantra, something?
Oh, you know what? And this is what I do with all the kids I coach. And this has kind of helped me through my stuff. So I line up all the kids and I have them run a sprint, and they have to finish the race. And usually what happens when you line up people, or if anybody runs a race, they see the finish line and they run and they bust their butt for about 95% of the race. And the last 5%, they coast past the finish line. Well, that's not the drill. You were asked to run hard across the finish line. They fully sprint through the whole race. And then we get to the point where they are basically exhausted, and we get them to do one more. And we get them to do one more. And at the end of it, and then we start to encourage and like, you got this, let's go, finish it. Don't quit on yourself, don't quit on the team. Don't quit on yourself, don't quit on the team. And at the end of doing it, I pull them all in together. And and the thing that I try to tell them, I said, look, guys, you had a race right here that we did a drill right now where you were tired and every part of your body wanted to quit. And it hurt. Your legs were burning, your lungs were burning, and you wanted to throw up and you wanted to quit. Your body and your mind were telling you to quit. But you were able to dig down and finish the race. When everything around you wanted to quit, you were able to dig down and finish the race and finish the drill. So take this now on to life. You know that you can do this, because in life, there's going to be times when you want to quit. It's going to hurt so bad that you want to go away. But knowing this time right now, it's been 5 minutes since we did this race. It doesn't hurt as bad, does it? And at some point, the pain will go away. It will go away. And so that's kind of the thing that I've tried to really emphasize at every team that I've coached, is doing that drill over and over and over. And what's cool is that I've been able to use that story for multiple kids 5, 6, 7 years after I've coached them, because they've run into a tough time. But that's the same type of thing in which I have, that I use, knowing that the pain will go away.
It's a great place to end, because really your story is so much about continuing to learn and to never capping your own ability. And so much of it is the stories that you tell yourself. And the most true story is the one that you tell yourself. And to go back to the Nat story, which is a fantastic example, there is no lid on your jar. There is no cap except for you and what you're holding yourself back. And your life is a flip your script kind of evolution. And I really appreciate that you shared it with us. And I hope that other people can learn from it and be inspired by it. And I really appreciate that you shared some insecurities and some rejection and some truths out there that are applicable in good times and can get us through the hard times. So thank you very much for sharing your story, Corey.
I appreciate it. Appreciate your time, Chrissy.
My hope is that Corey's story empowers you to believe you're capable of more than you think, to discover motivation, to uncover inspiration, and to find the strength to turn the page.
Thank you for listening to Flip Your Script, hosted by Christy Peel and produced by Media Minefield. If you like our message, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating and subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also check out flipyourscriptpodcast.com for pictures, resources mentioned in the show, and information about our other great episodes.